drop everything you're doing right now. Pay attention to this very important breaking news. This is Big Mama's tale. Big Mama is a humpback whale. She is back in the Salish Sea in Washington waterways. This is another new picture of Big Mama. Okay, so I hope everybody knows that humpback whales and whales in general have really struggled because of practices in the 20th century of whaling. So at the end of the 20th century, 1997 specifically, Big Mama was photographed for the first time off of British Columbia, and since then, she continuously comes back to Washington waterways. Okay, now I love this fact, especially because we're heading into Mother's Day weekend, but Big Mama has had 8 calves, and her lineage can be traced to 20 different whales. So Big Mama, thank you for what you do. Thank you for saving and adding strength to the humpback whale population. Happy Mother's Day weekend. We're glad you're back in Washington waterways.
There has been a police officer on campus here at Bothell High School in some form or fashion for more than 30 years, before Columbine was even a thing. Now, though, there are concerns among some parents that the school resource officer program may be eliminated. They point to a shift on the school board, a shift that appears to be leaning away from the program. As parents say that the school resource officer does more than just offer a sense of security about school shootings. They do everything from help kids who are locked out of their cars to helping investigate issues at home. Opponents of the program say that many students, or at least some students, don't feel safe with an armed officer on campus. They also point to something called the school to prison pipeline, where students, often in larger cities, end up getting arrested for incidents that could be better handled by a school counselor. The school board will take up this issue at its next Monday meeting. That's on the 11th. That's at 4:30, and the public is invited to attend.
A cacophony might be more appropriate than the symphony, although that's what usually happens right here at Seattle's beautiful Benaroya Hall, where the big headliner would be their historic news. Yes, for the first time in their 123-year history, they have a female conductor. Grammy-winning music director Shen Zhang is here, and timing is everything. They're getting a refresh. Yes, construction is underway. They're calling it Amplify, and it's not just a facelift, it's a full vibe upgrade. Think less intermission hallway, more stay a while, grab a drink, make a night of it. In fact, the Seattle Symphony says this isn't just a small change. This project is a part of a multi-million-dollar investment into the future of Seattle Symphony and its place here in downtown Seattle. It's not just about looks and acoustics, it's about keeping this venue competitive with the very best concert halls in the country. Performances continue, and expect the grand reopening. It's September of 2026. Don't expect the construction noises, though.
I like having my own space. I like having room to move, room to breathe. If you stop and listen more closely to the expression, there is gentleness, there is power, there is this dynamic. We're in Coupeville, Washington on Whidbey Island. I mostly go by Bagpiper Dawn within music, kind of working something out for Highland bagpipes. My most recent book is called The Shanty Piper. So far as I know, it is the first book of sea shanties arranged for Scottish bagpipes, let alone any kind of bagpipes in the world. I have a Celtic rock band, also sometimes have belly dancers with us because, well, why not? And where does the original instrument stem from? The Middle East. Really, I like playing anywhere and everywhere. Doesn't matter where I'm at, I like to play.
I've always loved bagpipes, but in nature and with this setting, unbelievable.
I think it's a lot of passion and calmness and make you look back in history.
By all means, we need to preserve the past, but we also need to live in today and go ahead and experiment and do some innovating. So keep the old alive, bring out the new.
A controversial $150,000 American flagpole project here in Puyallup just cleared a key vote, but not without changes. The city council voted to approve the 100-foot flagpole tied to America's 250th birthday, but also pushed for a new funding plan. The proposal drew strong debate inside City Hall Tuesday, with residents split over the cost. About a dozen people opposed the project, while 5 spoke in support. In the end, council members approved the project, but agreed to pursue private funding in addition to taxpayer dollars. The plan calls for a 100-foot flagpole along Meridian Avenue near the North Meridian Bridge, with a price tag of nearly $150,000. Supporters say this will serve as a civic landmark ahead of America's 250th anniversary, while critics still question the cost, even with the funding changes.
You've probably seen Henry's art around the Northwest, but now there's a way you can learn more about this mural.
So the tour is going to be a 3-hour tour. We got to have a busload of people. We will see at least 20 different murals. The variation and the imagination and the creativity, I think a lot of people see one mural and think, oh, I know the style of Henry. And it's not until you get out and actually get to take a look at a couple dozen different murals that you actually see all the different variation and the creativity he puts in, from the different characters he creates, the variety of colorful backgrounds.
On this tour, you can learn many things about Henry, like where did he paint it, that first Sasquatch in the city.
Things that were created in my early days. You can see the transition of styles, narratives that kind of happen within the work. It's just been a real pleasure being able to share my art on this level with people.
The tours are Thursdays through Sundays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. I told you that, okay? That was me. That was me.
The FDA announced this week its first authorization of fruit-flavored electronic cigarettes intended for adult smokers. Now, you might be thinking, weren't flavored vapes already available? I mean, I've definitely seen and smelled them. Well, it turns out almost all of them were illegal. The FDA had never officially approved a single fruit or non-tobacco flavor until now. The FDA is now greenlighting certain fruit-flavored e-cigs such as mango and blueberry, but with a twist. Users will have to verify their government ID on their phone, and the device only works via Bluetooth when connected to it. Health groups are pushing back, saying such flavors are intended to attract teens and kids. But teen vaping is at an apparent 10-year low, according to results from the National Youth Tobacco Survey that was done in 2024. So what are your thoughts on the FDA's decision? Let us know in the comments.
You know, they were fired from Mr. Meyer's gun because forensic scientist Deanna Korek did a ballistics comparison of the 10 casings found at the scene with the 2 casings that Detective Edwards test fired from Mr. Meyer's gun. And she confirmed that all casings were fired from the same gun, from Mr. Meyer's gun. Mr. Myers is guilty of murder in the 2nd degree and assault in the 2nd degree. And he was armed with a firearm at the time he committed both. I ask you to return verdicts as such.
The decision that you make in this case may not be the most important decision that you make in your life, but I guarantee you it is the most important decision in Mr. Meyer's life. So I ask you this: review all the evidence carefully. Read the judge's instructions thoroughly. Hold the state to its burden of proof faithfully, and return the only verdict supported by the evidence: not guilty to both charges.
We've learned of sexual assault in dating relationships of young teens. Some students are involved in abusive relationships, and because of the relationship our SRO has with these students, a lot of these victims will get justice.
I got the old yellow.
Oh my God, Joel! Stop! Just end the show.
This is where I step aside.
Hey, don't you remember, Chris? You've been here long enough, and Bill probably remembers it. Alvin Davis, the classic look of that yellow S.
Yeah,
His money.
I wore it. I mean, that's my hat, so I should rank it, right?
Yeah, your first time around. Your first time around with the Mariners, right?
Okay, so you like that. I know Egan hates that S. How many logos are there, Joel?
There's 9.
Okay, that's 9 for me. That's number 9.
All right. Let's get to number 1.
Number 1, we got the teal S.
Are you going with that? Are you including the teal there, too?
Yeah, I love it.
Joel, 1995, get in your DeLorean and go back to the future. Let's move on. Come on.
Come on, Chris. We've heard about it for years. It's the best year in Mariners history, the 1995 season.
All right.
Joey Cora wearing the teal hat.
I had a great girlfriend in 95. I don't keep going back to 95. I married my high school sweetheart, Joel. Move on from 95. We all just need to move on, Paul, from 95.
Oh, dude, if I have to see the Edgar double one more time, I love Edgar, and it was an awesome time, but holy cow.
Or Randy staring you down with that teal hat.
You know, listen, you know how I feel about teal in the sports office. I'm not a fan of the teal jersey. I'm not a fan of the teal hat. I'm not a fan of the teal anything. And let me just say this. I know I'm in the minority when I say that. I realize that. I'm just not a fan of the teal anything. I'm a huge fan of the Steelheads uniform. I like the city look too. Bill, chime in whenever you want, because I can get on my soapbox.
I think teal is a tough color. It really needs to be complementary. It can't be the statement color.
Okay.
And they don't do any favors because they have the silver number against it, and it really blases the whole look out. They need something that pops off that, so it stands out a little bit more.
That's good to hear your opinion about it.
Paul, I'm looking at the top 5. I don't see this anywhere.
That's 9th on my list, Chris. That thing is putrid.
I don't see this anywhere.
It looks better on you, though. What do you, a free bowl of soup?
I got free fruit when I came into the station today, Paul.
All right, just learning that an American legend has died, and I'm learning more about the legend of Ted Turner. That is just blowing my mind. Did you know that he owned 2 million acres worth of land, which is enough to cover entire small states, national parks? It's just incredible. It also makes him the 3rd largest private landowner in U.S. history. 2 million acres? The founder of CNN, former owner of the Atlanta Braves, outspoken television pioneer, died at age 87. He was an American business legend, no doubt. But what I find most intriguing about his land ownership, not just the enormous amount of it, but the way he cultivated this land on ranches here like in Montana and in New Mexico. Growing up in Montana, I heard all about Ted Turner's land. But one of his best known properties is called Vermejo Park Ranch. It's about 600,000 acres in itself, which is already bigger than most national parks. It's here and in ranches across the country that he worked to preserve the ecosystem. Vermejo alone supports wildlife restoration, bison guest operations, and he works to conserve the natural ecosystem there. I think that's one of the reasons why he's such a legend. He's conserving Mother Nature, not building buildings and stadiums on it. His conservation work in the country has really saved hundreds of thousands of acres and species. So when you hear about Ted Turner in the coming days after his death, you might hear a lot about CNN, you might hear a lot about the Braves and his brash business personality, but it's his enormous land ownership that has me just floored.
This happened on April 18th. The beaches around Potlatch State Park here along Hood Canal were packed with shellfish fans, and also 4 poachers and 1 hired getaway driver.
She is shucking oysters into a small container.
Sergeant Matt Jewett.
Right now he's digging clams with a rake.
Is a Department of Fish and Wildlife game warden.
To get the sneaky ones, you have to be sneaky.
While on patrol in mid-April, he spotted something fishy.
I saw some people with some 5-gallon buckets and they were moving fast.
He tracked them back to a van with about 500 oysters inside.
In the back of the van, they had a big container full with hundreds of oysters in 1 5-gallon bucket, and then in the middle of the van they had another 2 buckets.
Sergeant Jewett says the driver of the van was a hired rideshare driver, paid hundreds to take the crew from King County out to Hood Canal and back, and he had no idea what was going on.
I've had people change clothes, go back out, hide, have spotters, all different things like that, but I've never had a ride share.
The World Health Organization says 3 people suspected of contracting hantavirus on a cruise ship are now off the boat and headed to the Netherlands for treatment. 3 people have died from the outbreak on board that ship, and a former passenger who just returned to Switzerland tested positive for hantavirus. Authorities said the rare strain responsible for the outbreak is capable of human-to-human transmission. The ship left Argentina last month on a voyage across the Atlantic. It's now anchored off West Africa with 150 people on board, including 17 Americans. It was supposed to sail to the Canary Islands today, but local leaders now say they will not allow the ship to dock.
The King County Council has unanimously passed a motion to strengthen oversight of the King County Regional Homeless Authority. Last month, an audit spanning from 2021 through last year found the agency cannot account for $13 million in public funds. The approved motion requires the King County executive to provide a briefing in June and then release a comprehensive report by August that addresses the funding shortfall and options for next steps.
I believe we have a 5-alarm fire here. I am extremely concerned about the position that this agency has put county taxpayers in by continuing for years to borrow money to run their operations, and worse, spend more than they had appropriated to them. They have dug a hole.
Meantime, a King County Council member and a Seattle City Council member are drafting companion resolutions to formally dissolve the King County Regional Homelessness Authority.
It is now officially lights out for Equita, the troubled pharmacy in Kirkland, Washington that we've been exposing in our investigative series, Selling Skinny. Equita manufactured low-cost GLP-1 diet drugs. As we've reported, management ordered pharmacists and pharmacy assistants to cut corners there, saving the company money but putting patients at risk. Now the Washington State Department of Health confirms that Equita has given up its pharmacy license and closed its Kirkland facility. The pharmacy had very limited operations going on since it faced sanctions from the health department last year. However, as we've been reporting, the telehealth company that sold Equita drugs nationwide, a San Francisco startup called Mochi, is still in business selling GLP-1s. We'll have more on that company and its CEO coming up soon in the King 5 investigation. And if you used Mochi diet drugs, I'd love to hear about your experience. You can email me here in Seattle, Chris Ingalls, at cingalls@king5.com, cingalls@king5.com.
You know, one of the real benefits of working here and working in weather for so many years is watching the change in technology. If we look back 40, 50 years when I started doing the forecasting, things were really primitive. We were practically on stone tablets. But now we can see so many details from, for example, the satellite images. It's just a miracle. Well, here's a good example. This is a satellite image that we got in the Weather Service way back in 1986. So about 40 years ago. You can see the date up there in the left-hand corner, that 86, July 22nd, as a matter of fact. And you can also see, if you look closely, you can see the clouds working their way into Puget Sound. Not too different from what we're seeing right now with some marine air pushing in there and just kind of filling in Puget Sound. But not a whole lot of detail in that image, is there? You can get a rough idea. And this was a vast improvement over what we had just 10 years before that, where it was really basically blurry and they only came a couple times a day. So here's our modern picture that we get into the station, about every 5 minutes or so. And that's, again, that marine layer pushing on in over the interior of Puget Sound. But look at all the detail out there. First of all, you can see the Olympics sticking up out of the clouds. You can see the clouds going up those river basins there on the west side of the Olympics, and scanning across Puget Sound over towards the Cascades. Look at that detail in terms of the river valleys there, just kind of filling them in with clouds, and still seeing the snow up in the mountains. But this is just an amazing tool to be able to pick out detail in those little microclimates that we have around Western Washington. So yes, things really are getting better with time.
A couple who had their late dog's belongings stolen from their car just days before they were moving out of Seattle have now been reunited with their lost items. Last month, Brandon Dunn told King 5 that somebody had broken into his wife's car in the U District and stolen items including their dog's ashes and a stuffed animal that looked like their dog. Dunn says a man recently found those items in a dumpster and contacted him through a flyer that was posted in the neighborhood.
You know, I give a lot of credit to Luke. You know, he's made some adjustments here, and I know he's been working his tail off down there in the cages. And you know, tonight I think we saw the fruits of that. Got a great pitch to hit and put a really good swing on it. And you know, that's because of his work ethic, because how hard he works, how much he cares.
Just trying to be consistent at the plate, consistent in the field. I think that's the biggest thing.